welcome back to the 1010 podcast. We have Olivia and Jazzy here. Yay. We're taking over for my mom again. This is our second week in our relationship series. Last week, what did we talk about, Liv?
Last week, we talked about singleness and how to find purpose and passion in your singleness.
Yes, and it was great. So that will be out on May 2nd, I believe. So this is our second one. And today, we are going to be talking about dun dun dun. Cue the sound effects. What was that one? What was it, that one? Oh, I can't hear it. Dating. Oh, that's perfect, actually. Dating, because it's so dreamy, right?
Oh.
And so magical and so fun.
So amazing.
But it also can be a nightmare. And it can be horrible and sad.
Yeah.
So we're just going to talk a little bit about the good things about dating, the hard things about dating, what we think you can do to make dating the best season, and some things maybe that you could avoid or at least think about before you go into dating to help you have the best dating relationship.
Yeah, we're going to hit all the bases today about dating because there's a lot to cover in dating, especially these days.
Yeah, and the truth is, like, everything that we say is not like 100% truth, the only way you can do it.
We're just girls.
So I'm just a girl. I don't know what I'm talking about.
We're hardly adults, okay? So.
Yeah, well,
I'm just kidding.
You actually have been married for 50, what was it?
52 days.
So
we looked it up this morning.
She's the expert.
So ask me all your questions.
And I am getting married in 39 days.
Woo woo.
No, it is 39. I looked this morning. Let's not fight about this right now. Just kidding. Anyways,
what? 39 days. That's
39
crazy.
Days, yeah. So we have both dated, obviously.
Yes.
We both have had relationships.
Good and bad.
Good and bad.
Yes.
We've got lots of stories.
Yeah.
Got lots of advice. Lots of don't do this because I did this and it did not go well. So yeah, let's just talk a little bit about, maybe recap our dating relationships with your now husband and my fiance.
Yes.
Just maybe things that stood out to you that were different in this relationship that helped you realize that this is a good, dating relationship, healthy relationship.
Yeah. Do you want me to start?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, me and my now husband, which still feels so weird to say. I don't feel like I'm allowed to have a husband. Like, who let me have a husband? My mom and dad let me. It's okay. I was allowed. We started dating it's almost been a year since we started dating. We started dating in May of 2023. And so we haven't even been together for a year and we're already married, but we've known each other since we were in like early elementary school, like I think third grade. But we did not date until I think 3 years out of high school. So there was a while, but we ended up reconnecting through my cousin, who is engaged now to his brother. So my cousin is going to be my sister-in-law in a couple months, which is so crazy and so fun to just have family in this season together. It's been a blast. But we started dating because I guess my husband's name is London. London was pestering my cousin about me, was trying to like get her to give him my information, like my phone number or something. But she was like, no, I don't think Olivia would be interested in you. But I was interested in him. So we ended up dating. He texted me out of the blue and went out. And I think what made our dating relationship so different than any other relationship I've had is that we started pretty slow. Like we hadn't seen each other in years. So it was like, we had a lot to catch up on just in like, how are you? What is your life? Or like all the things. Who are you? Yeah, exactly. And our first couple of dates, we did like double dates with my cousin and Bella and Brayden, which I wanted that because I was like, I texted Bella after London asked me out and I'm like, oh my gosh, London asked me out. We should like plan something together because like I'm scared. I don't know this man. I haven't seen him since high school. So we like did fun group dates together. And I think that really helped me like feel comfortable to like be myself and be like, I can see myself being alone with you. And so it was fun. It was really fun. And like when you date in the summer and like in the early spring, it's just life just feels perfect.
That's so
like
true.
when the sun is out, you're just like, I don't even care who
when you
are.
live in a place like Washington where dating in the winter
is so
kinda
depressing.
sucks.
It does, yeah.
I mean, it's great when you're with the right person.
Right.
That's not what sucks about it. It's just like when you
early
there's
dating
not a
in the
ton
winter
to
is
do,
really hard, right?
and it's so cold outside and a lot of things you want to do. You're like, well,
yeah.
we can't do that. It's too cold to like go on a walk or,
Yeah.
you know. But yeah, dating in the summer is
Yes.
the
So it was really
best.
fun because there's things to do, you know, like.
And so you guys started dating in the spring.
Yes.
Had all the summer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, which was so fun.
That is fun. That's a fun way to start a relationship.
It was. And it was fun because we kind of started dating. Like,
Yeah,
I
in the
dated
same
London and you
month.
did Riley within the same time. So then we got to do things together. And I think it was like healthy for me to have other people, especially in the early stages, be a part of the relationship.
Yeah.
So then I felt like I'm not just being crazy or I'm not just
Right.
like diving into this, you know, not thinking things through. But I had like my sister and my cousin and
Yeah.
other people to kind of like witness.
Pace yourself with.
Yeah, exactly. It was a lot of fun. And I feel like it's still so sweet to like look back at the dating, even though it's not that long ago. It just feels like, oh, it was so
Yeah.
sweet. And like
Yeah.
we were just little babies. But
Yeah. Because dating should be, I think it should be fun.
yeah,
And it shouldn't be too serious at the beginning.
Right.
You mentioned like what you loved about your and London's relationship was that you started slow and it wasn't like right off the
there
bat.
was no like intensity of like,
Yes.
we have to make this work. It was
Or,
just like we were having fun.
We were talking earlier about you can sometimes it's good. It's so good to be very intentional with dating. Like we're not just dating to date or
Right.
because we're bored.
Right.
I think as Christians, we want to be intentional with every area of our life, especially our relationships, and then especially like regarding dating and marriage. But it is true that like there is no way of 100% knowing if someone if it's going to work out with someone, and risking or dating does just involve risk in some way. And so I think
absolutely.
it's super wise to just start slow.
Yeah.
So like for you, what were things that helped you or things that you're thinking about? Like, okay, slow down. Like
Yeah.
what were the areas that you wanted to rush in and how did you keep yourself from doing that?
Yeah, I think I mentioned in the former podcast, the earlier one, that I never really like wanted to date. I just wanted to get married. Like I just was like, yeah, I want to get married. So I feel like I had a hard time just dating and like being okay with that and just like taking it one day at a time. And the thing that I loved, it was like London was just so easy to date. Like he was just so fun. And I always felt like I don't even want to think about marriage right now because I'm just having so fun.
Yeah.
Having so much fun dating
Just
you right
being
now.
present.
But one thing that someone told me to practice early in the relationship was to just verbally surrender my relationship to the Lord, like on a daily basis, especially in the early stages when you're just kind of like, I don't know what this is, but to just like, I remember like there would be nights where I would get home from a date and I'd be like, that is so fun. I want to marry him. And it would be like our third date. And I'm like, okay, I need to slow down. And I just would like sit down and be like, God, I don't know what's going to happen with this relationship. And I want it to work, but I just surrender it to you. And I surrender all my ideas of this relationship to you. And it was really easy in the first couple, I would say like weeks of dating to do that because I didn't have that much invested in the relationship. It was just kind of like, yeah, it's okay. Like if you take this, you know, if it's not your will, you can have it. But as the dating went on, it got more difficult to do that because it was like, I have such an emotional investment in this relationship and I can see our future and all these things. But it was still such a good practice to just be like, God, I surrender this relationship to you. It's not mine, but it's yours. Let everything in my life be in alignment with your will. And it was such a good practice. It was hard, but I think it kind of shifted my perspective of the relationship to being like so small and like just my life to being just like, no, this is a part of God's plan. Like every element of my life is his.
Right.
And that would just be like, I would give that advice to any person dating, that just like, it's not your relationship to hold on to. Like the looser of a grasp you can hold on it, the less heartbreak you'll experience if it doesn't work, and the more peace you'll feel if it does work, to be like, no, I know this is God's plan because I daily surrendered this to him, and I know that, you know, God has good plans for me, and so that was good for me.
The early stages of dating can be scary because you're just like, I don't know if this is gonna work, but you also are like, I love it, it's going great, or maybe it's like not going so great, and you're like, how do I get out of this? When do I get out of this? So I know there's a big range of like dating experiences. And we can only talk about so many because we just have our own experiences, right? And everybody has different experiences, but I would say most girls fall into that trap of rushing into things, even if it's just mentally and emotionally, way quicker than guys can.
Right.
Even like before you start dating, that can be like
the talking stage,
the infatuation stage, when you don't actually know the person, but you just like the idea of it.
And you create like their personality in your mind when in reality that's
and then you
not
get to
who
know
they
them
are
and you're like, you're not acting like yourself.
Like they're like, we've known each other for 2 hours. It's bad.
Yeah. Hit close to home.
Yeah.
That was totally me growing up. Just like,
you're not acting like yourself. What's wrong?
But yeah. So I think for girls, just to remember, slow down.
Yeah.
Even just that practice of like after every date, journaling or praying and just being like, God, I trust you. I surrender it to you. Because you want to hold on and you want to make it yours so quickly, which I think at the heart of it is good, because you want to have that love for someone to where like that, because that marriage bond is inseparable and it is like the biggest commitment, and so you should have that, but that's not for dating at first. Like when you're just, so maybe we should kind of talk about different stages and types of dating, because we've kind of been talking about the beginning stages, right? But then let's say you're dating someone and it's going really well. Maybe you've been dating. I mean, like everyone's timeline's different. Like how long did you and London date?
We dated
before you got engaged. Was it like 7
before
months?
we got engaged?
Yeah.
Is it terrible that I don't remember? I think it was May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. Yeah, 8 months.
Yeah. And I think that was the same for Riley and I.
Yeah.
About 8 months, which is pretty short.
Yeah.
Compared to like a lot of people, but
especially
it's also
because
longer
both
than
of us,
some people.
Both of us like didn't really know them before.
Yeah.
Like you didn't know Riley, and I mean like I knew London, but I didn't know him. Like I just knew
That's
of
true.
him.
I can share a little bit about how I met Riley.
Yeah, you share that, and then we'll go into the
okay,
next
cool.
part.
So I met Riley in person for the first time at a worship night in February, and she keeps looking back because Riley's here, just so you know. if you see her looking, like, she's not looking at you into the camera dramatically. I met Riley. So I met him in person February, was it 18th? I think February 19th.
You're so good at dates. I don't
know
remember
why?
any
It's
of
because
these.
I journal like a freak, and I just write down dates and things that I want to remember, and I like timeline and stuff. Yeah. So I had heard of him before because he plays bass, and I think I'd been to a conference like a couple years before that he played at the same conference for 2 years in a row, and I saw him at both. And so I knew who he was, but I didn't really know a lot about him. I thought he was cool. So I met him in February, and I was actually dating someone else at the time. And so it was not even a thought in my mind about like, oh, he's cute.
Riley.
You know, I just was like, I just remember it was like, I was excited to meet him because I think we had followed each other on Instagram at that point, just through mutual friends. But I knew that he was a cool guy and that he was like really good at music. He seemed like just a church kid and just like someone that I feel like I would get along with. And so I was like, oh, it's an honor to like meet him because he's got the clout, you know, like he's just cool.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Hey, babe.
Should I leave for a minute?
No, I just like, he's cool. So I'm excited to meet him. We hung out that night with some friends and we got ice cream. And
I was there.
It was more, I think it was more of a moment as we talk about it for Riley, because one, like I was in a relationship, like a newer relationship. And so I wasn't like, I wasn't even going there at all. But I remember like we talked about it later, and Riley walked away from that night like, I want to marry someone like her. Like he was praying to God about that. And so that was sweet to hear that. And then it was probably 3 or 4 months later. 3 months later we met again. And this time I was single as well. He didn't know that. So he was like kind of not, he was trying to protect his own mind and his own like spirit from liking a girl that's in a relationship.
Yeah.
So he was like kind of being cold, not mean, just
Distant.
just distant, like not a lot of eye contact. And then that night it came up in the group that because he asked how things were going. I said, actually not well.
We broke up. Riley's like doing a little party dance
like
on this.
that. He literally full eye contact. He gives me a hug. He's like, I am so sorry. And I was like, thanks, bro. Like you were just being all mean before. I see how it is.
Thank you, brother in Christ.
Thank you, brother. And I think after that, I was glad that he knew because it had been some time and I was like, okay, I think he's kind of cool. So like a month of like me thinking like, oh, I like him. I think he's cool. Following each other on Instagram, liking each other's stuff, liking each other's stories. You know how it goes, girls, how you just send those subtle hints that are really not noticeable at all, but you think you're really doing something.
You like hit the like button and you're like, oh my gosh, he's gonna say that I liked his story.
He saw my story. Oh my gosh, he totally likes me.
Yeah,
He was the first person.
he's like totally obsessed.
He like really loves me. Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
And I just remember like when I would like cater stories to like what I think
to try
he
and
would
get a response,
and
from
it
him.
worked. I feel like every time, like you didn't know that. Yeah, like I would post music stuff. You know how it is, like when you like someone and you're trying to get them to notice you. I just remember posting like music stuff and just you just try to make yourself look cool, which is what dating is. You're just showing your best self, So then after
take it if you want it.
Yeah, I'm right here, baby. So after a month of that, we met again, and it was another worship thing. He was playing drums. I was leading worship at his church, and then that night after the event, we hung out for like an hour just talking. And I just it was the first time we had like really talked, and there was like just some chemistry there, and it was just so natural and so fun. And I just left that night, and we got a group chat together. So I had his number, and we made plans with some friends to go on a hike. And I just left that night feeling so just like full of joy and so encouraged that I had like even just had that evening to it was just a really refreshing night for me because I got out of my normal routine. I went to his church and just met a bunch of people, hung out with friends, and just had a really like fun time. And so it was just a sweet way to like start.
This is so random.
What?
I'm just remembering that night when you were driving to his church. His church is in Renton, so it's like a 45-minute drive. I remember you were driving your Jeep and you thought you had a flat tire. So Jazzy was like in her car and she couldn't check because she's like on the freeway or something. But then traffic stopped, so she like rolled down her window. She's like to the guy next to her, like, "Does my tire look flat to you?" And he just was like, I don't know. It's such a stupid
did
story.
I tell you that story?
Yeah,
That's how
but
you
I
know.
just remember like feeling the secondhand
my
embarrassment
car does
because
this
he like
weird
didn't.
thing where it used to do it like it wasn't flat at all.
it
When I
was
looked
just,
at
like-
it just my like the wheel would like get like
Coming from
crooked.
two girls who know nothing about cars.
And so my wheel was like turned like this, and I had to like overcompensate just to go straight.
Your alignment was off.
And the alignment was off. It's fine now. My dad fixed it.
But I just don't know why
No,
that
I
story
literally,
sticks out
I was
to
like
me.
stressed. I was like, because I couldn't see if my tire was flat, and I didn't want to pull over because I was already late. And then, so I just rolled down my window and asked the guy next to me.
And he just like did not even give you the time of
I was
day.
like, does my tire look flat to you? And he said, no. And I was like, okay.
And then she has crank windows. She's like crank it back up.
And then we sat there for like another 10 seconds because it was in like stop traffic.
I don't know why I just thought of that.
I was
sorry.
a mess.
I just threw us
No,
way
that's
off
so
track,
funny.
But I just
That's a
thought of
good
that.
story. So yeah, the Jeep needs to go soon.
Yeah.
It's doing fine now. Anyways, where was that? Oh yeah, the
I don't
night
know.
that we
Oh yeah,
really
so you
connected.
left feeling like excited about a future relationship.
and just like
Sorry, our dog is in here. Pippin,
you need to stop.
sorry.
Yeah. Anyway, so after that night, I was like, okay, I think I like him. And so we started hanging out with friends at first too. And I'm glad we did that because I didn't know Pippin. I think he just wants to say hi to people. Yeah, I think group dates on the first few dates are
really
fun if
helpful.
you can. That's kind of hard to arrange sometimes.
Yeah.
Unless you're like setting someone up. But for our situation, it was like we were with a group of friends like, let's all go hiking.
Yeah.
And it was really just like an excuse to get Riley and I like talking and hanging out. So yeah, we did group dates like that. And then I think about after about a month of hanging out with friends, we just decided to go official, as in like we were always exclusive, but just more of like, it's good to define where you're at with the person instead of just assuming like, because I could have assumed like, oh, he's my boyfriend from like the second hangout.
He's like still getting to know you,
right?
Just isn't sure.
And so after maybe about like 6 hangouts, we were like, Riley initiated a lot of that and was like, from the start, he was like, I like you. Let's just see where this goes. Let's just have fun with it. And he just took all of the pressure off, because I think girls feel a lot of things in the beginning. And it's such a blessing to have a man who is so clear with how he feels about you, but then also doesn't put pressure on you to feel a certain way. Like from the beginning, Riley was always like, I really like you. I think you're amazing. I could see myself being with someone like you, but there's no pressure. Like you don't have to tell me how you feel or like feel pressure to feel anyway, but just so you know, like I feel this way about you. And that was like the sweetest thing, because it just made me feel so safe and so loved. And I felt like I had time to decide how I wanted to feel. And because we didn't know each other that long. It was pretty like quick and new. Yeah. Though even from the start, I was like, I feel like I know him. Yeah. So yeah, the way we started our dating relationship was really slow and good. But once we like made it official, it was kind of like, here we go.
That's
like,
what I was going to say. I feel like the same. For us, it was really slow at the beginning, and then all of a sudden it was like, boom, we are on the fast track.
Totally.
Let's get married.
Yeah. Which, okay, that's kind of the way it should go. Because maybe not for everyone.
Like it's pretty relative.
It's pretty relative to your situation, how old you are, what season of life you're in.
Like if you're a junior in high school and you start dating, maybe you don't get married after the first 8 months of dating.
No, exactly.
I don't know, just a thought.
Yeah, or it's like even if you're long distance, that plays part into it.
Yeah,
but
totally.
Yeah. So there's like that decision point of where we're not just dating, but like we're in a relationship and there's a little bit more commitment.
We should talk about the difference between dating and being in a relationship. Because I feel like that's something that is pretty... Dating has a different meaning today.
A different tone
has.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like there's a difference between dating and like having a boyfriend. I think maybe not in everyone's minds. Like I feel like for me, it was the same. And London and I were kind of on the same page about that. But for some people, it's like dating is just like, I went on a date with someone to see if we were compatible and see if it was interesting. And we're like dating, casually dating. We're going to go on a couple more dates. But like, he's not my boyfriend. We're not in a relationship.
That is the phase that you need to be careful in. Yeah. Especially like
mentally. You need to like protect, set boundaries for yourself.
Yes. And that's really hard to do because it's kind of like the interview.
And physically and all the things, set boundaries for yourself. I'm not saying
not physically, just emotionally. No. In all areas, boundaries are really important in that beginning phase. Because that's the time that should be pretty lighthearted. Right. And
especially when you don't know the person before. It's different if you've like grown up with the person. You maybe don't need to have that season of like, are we good for each other? If you've like had a relationship before, I feel like you can kind of decide pretty quickly, like, well, let's date. Like I want to take this seriously. Right. But it's different for every situation and every person.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, after that point, you make the decision of like, do I want to stay with this person or no? So I think just being clear from the start and like not feeling like you have to keep someone close. So yeah.
I'm curious about, I think I know your answer on this, but we've talked about it a little bit in the past. Like, what do you think about in those early stages of dating when you've not made it official, you're not necessarily exclusive to this person? What do you think about like dating multiple people during those early stages? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't think it's wrong to date casually multiple people at once, as long as you're clear with each person that you go out with that, hey, I'm seeing some other people. Okay, this sounds so bad the way I just said that. I don't think it is wrong. because I think about like online dating. You are showing interest in multiple people at once if you're like swiping or if you're, like clicking on profiles. And eventually like one of them is going to stick out to you. But I don't think it's wrong to go on like multiple first dates at the same time. Personally, I don't know if I could emotionally handle that. And I know people that do, and they're like, yeah, I have like a date lined up this week. I have one lined up next week, because they're in a season of like dating,
just are
and like
figuring it out.
if you have that many people interested in you, like good for you. I don't know how many people like realistically have like 5 people asking them out. But say you are in that season of like making yourself available, like you're reaching out to friends, like, hey, do you know any single people? Yeah. And they're like, yeah, let me set you up with this guy. Here's a blind date here. And then your other friend is like, oh, I have a friend, like you should go out with them. I think that's totally okay. Yeah, I agree. And I think it's good, but you need to really be careful with that personally, and just think of them as like you're meeting a friend. Right. Because they're not your boyfriend. They're not your husband. They're just people that are interested in you, that you want to get to know. Supposedly interested. Yeah, or like someone set you up with. Yeah. So
I feel like it can be really dangerous ground. I feel like I would never recommend that to someone, to be like, yeah, just date multiple people at once. Unless I like knew them and knew their personality enough to like gauge whether or not that would be healthy for them. I would never recommend that to someone who's like young, has never dated before, has never like, I think that would not set them up for success, especially like if you're either in high school. No, I wouldn't. Don't do that. If you're like early college, I don't know. I feel like every personality is different.
Older person, older as in like you're more mature, you have your life figured out, and you're like ready, and you're like interviewing for a husband.
Exactly. Like if you're like, I want to be married, like, and I'm going to be proactive about that. I think in that situation, it could be good. But again, like if you don't feel like your mentality is in the right place, I wouldn't do it. Yeah. And like keep people you trust up to date on that, and just be like, can you hold me accountable in this? And like, this is, I don't know. I could never. No. I don't think I could ever do it. No. I know myself. And
yeah, I think like if you're going on first dates, it's fine. Yeah. But I think anything past like a couple dates, you should be really clear with the person, just to keep things from getting sketchy. Right. Yeah, because cheating is not cool.
No, not at all.
And I don't think it's cheating to go on multiple first dates. Commitment. Like if you say you go on like 3 first dates in a month with different guys, I don't think that's bad at all. Good for you. 3 dates in 1 month. Wow.
Round of applause.
Very cool. But yeah, it's a good question. Should we move on? Where are we at?
I think we had some other
talked about types of dating. We talked about labeling the relationship. The timeline. What was that like for you in London after you had gone on a few first dates?
Like when did we label it?
Label it as like we are.
I feel like I can't remember any well, I do remember a conversation. London and I did not grow up going to the same church. And so there was a Sunday I had invited him to come to church with me, and he was going to come. And this was before we were pretty new. Like we'd been dating for like maybe 2 weeks or something like that. And he was like, yeah, I'll come to church with you. And I was like, yay. And then a couple days went by, and then I started like getting kind of scared, because I'm like, a lot of people know me at church, and I'm going to have to introduce him to a lot of people. What am I going to introduce him as? Like, this is my friend London, and we like each other, but like we're not official. So I was like, I need to like clarify this. So I actually was the one that initiated the conversation. But we both were like, oh yeah, I guess we should label it. Like, I think we were just so infatuated with each other, and so just like, we're having so much fun. Who cares what we are? Or like, so I think it was in earlier, like mid-May, that we had the conversation. And I was kind of like, so what are we? He was like, oh yeah, like what are we? And I think it was pretty like, love. Yeah, it was kind of like, well, like I like you, and you like me, and we are interested in pursuing something more. And like the funny thing is before we'd had this conversation, like we had basically already been talking about like futures and like all the things that I feel like talk about after you're dating. So I feel like we both mentally were just on the same page and just never communicated it, which is not the case for everyone. And I think it is good to clarify, but I feel like we just never had a moment where it was like, what are we?
Yeah.
Like there was just never any confusion about it. It was just like, we're dating.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was just kind of like, and then I feel like after that conversation, it kind of just like breaks the ice a little bit of like, okay, I can call you my boyfriend.
Yeah.
Which still like, I don't know. I feel like it's exciting, but it's also like my boyfriend.
Hey, boyfriend.
Yeah. And then it's a little bit, you can be like giddy and silly about it. But after that, things pretty much progressed pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Like I remember it was not even a month after that. We hadn't even been dating for a month, I think. And he told me that he wanted to marry me. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, okay.
I do.
Let's get married. And then I was like, but you haven't even like told me that you love me yet. And you haven't even kissed me yet. and then I was like, so do you love me? And he was like, well, of course I love you. And then I was you can't just say that. Like, you need to tell me that you love me. But then I was like, you cannot tell me right now that you love me. It has to be.
Then it's forced.
Right, exactly. So I was like, you need to like wait a little bit and then you can tell me that you love me. So yeah.
He's
and
so
then after that, we
funny.
were just like, let's get married.
Yeah. And then you did.
And then I remember I came home that night and I told my mom and dad, like, so London and I are getting married. And they were like, okay, let's do it. And it was just pretty much like from there on out, we were like just getting married.
So special.
Yeah.
Love it.
It was pretty crazy.
Yeah. It was pretty like a short timeline.
Yeah.
But in the moment, it doesn't feel
No,
like it. Like,
it doesn't. And I think like for us, we both come from like really strong Christian families who love God and love us and like want what's best for us. And so I think both of our parents were supportive of it.
Yeah.
And like all of our family and friends were supportive of it. And that kind of to us was like, we have all the green lights.
And you had so much history. Like,
yeah, like
your whole lives.
We grew up together basically. Like we graduated high school together, and there was like a 3-year gap where I knew nothing about him. But I feel like all the essentials were like, yes, this works. And not to say that like there were things during our early stages of dating that we definitely had to like talk about, and it took us a while to get on the same page on some things. But I feel like in the end, it was like we just wanted what's best for each other and wanted to get married.
Yeah.
So it just worked.
When you know, you know.
Yeah, pretty much.
It is true. Even though it might take some more time for you to know. Wow, I just broke the mic. What just happened? Okay, I want to just, before we wrap up here, talk about boundaries a little bit more. What are some emotional boundaries that you should have as a Christian in dating? And I can let you think for a second, because I had thought of one that earlier on in the dating relationship, some boundaries do change as you grow in the relationship, and then obviously as you get married.
Right.
And I remember one boundary that we kind of talked about in our relationship was, as our relationship was progressing and we were still dating, but we had been like, we started to talk about marriage and talk about like
what the future holds.
Yeah. What does the future hold? Like, so you want to get married, and then like, you know, that leads to like, where do you want to live? And then it leads to like, how many kids you want? What should we name our kids? I remember like I had a conversation with Riley about it, being like, it's too much to talk about the names of our kids right now when you're like freshly just, you know, like coming to terms with like, yeah, we're going to get married. And I remember like, that's kind of a silly one but it was just like for that season of like, we're past the casual dating. We're in a relationship, but we're not engaged yet.
Right.
And we're not married yet, but we're dreaming about being married. It's okay to dream about the future and dream about marriage, but just be aware of like how that is affecting you emotionally. Because for me, it was sending me into like stress and like not wanting to date anymore, just because I just want to be engaged. I just want to be married. I just want to have kids. I just want to pick the names. I want to, you know, all that stuff, where it was like causing me to not be able to be present.
Yeah.
And it was just like a short season because we got engaged eventually.
Yeah.
And then it was like, okay, I felt a release to like dream about those things a little bit more now, because like there's that security of this is going to be my husband. Because who wants to create fake scenarios in your mind that are not promised?
Right.
Because I mean, we've all dated before, and you know, you have that conversation of like, do you want to get married? And you're like, yeah. And then
You break up.
And then you're left with like, oh, like, what about this future that we dreamed about together? And
it's like,
that
it's just
sucks.
a dream.
Yeah, because there was no action behind talk. And I think you want to protect yourself and your boyfriend from potential harm and hurt that you can have if there is a breakup. And I don't think you should be afraid of, I don't think you should have that fear of like, oh, we might break up, so let's not talk about that. Because that's not healthy to have that. But you just want to
There's a right time.
There's a right time.
Yeah.
And so then I'm just saying that emotional boundary lifted when we got engaged. And then I was like, now we actually have a list of baby names that we want to name our kids one day because, you know, he's going to be my husband.
Yeah.
And there's that security there.
Yeah.
But we still have boundaries now because obviously we're not married yet. And so I think in every stage there are different boundaries, but that's one that I think could be helpful for people.
Yeah. That's really good. I think that's a really healthy standpoint to take it too, because you don't have that promised. And I think that's good. So
yeah.
I commend you for having the emotional boundary.
Thank you.
I feel like one for me that that I think is a good boundary, I think it's a boundary, is to like be careful of the way you speak about your boyfriend to other people, in a sense that sometimes it's really easy to like have a claim on a boyfriend or like a relationship and speak about it as if it's your husband or like as if, I think there's just a lot of boundaries that you need to be careful of when you're dating, of that it's not your husband. They're not your husband. Like they're not, there's a huge difference between boyfriend. Right. Yeah. And I think like when you allow yourself to communicate to other people as if it's your husband or as if you guys are married, it gives a wrong idea to other people. And I think it also like builds this wrong understanding in yourself of what your relationship is. And obviously like there are so many other boundaries when it comes to like physical boundaries and like things that you allow to happen in the relationship. But I think a lot of times people forget about the emotional and like spiritual boundaries, and that a lot of times it starts with those. And if you don't have good emotional boundaries, it's way easier to fall into the temptation of physical boundaries. When you don't let yourself think about that person as if they're your husband, it protects you from a lot of things. Like, you know, it's a pretty common one. And at least in our family, like when we're dating, we weren't allowed to have our boyfriend in our room with a closed door or like things like that. And I think it's the same thing emotionally. Like don't allow your boyfriend into certain rooms in your mind and close the door with them in there, because it's not a space for them yet. And it's a space reserved for your husband and someday. And I think a lot of times it can like, it can do so much damage. And sometimes like I was not perfect. There were so many things that I'm like, in hindsight, I wish I would have waited to think those things about London or like have those dreams about London. Cause now that we're married, it's like, it would have been so much sweeter to have those conversations now or like those dreams now. Cause now it's like, we're married, you know? Yeah. And so, I just think there's so many things to be careful about. And that's why it's so good to have spiritual mentors and friends that you trust that are going to give you good godly advice, and come to them and be like, I'm really struggling with like the way I'm viewing my boyfriend and like the way I'm talking, like, can you help me and like bring correction to where,
instead of just talking badly about them to maybe every person that you're friends with.
And especially like there are parts of a relationship that need to be kept between the two of you. I think this is more for like further down the road in the dating relationship, but like when things, like when you and your partner get into a fight, you don't need to share that with everyone, because then like if London and I were dating and we got into a fight and I come to tell you, I'm like, oh, London was being just such a jerk today. Like he was so horrible to me. He did this. Not that I would never say that, but like, you know, and if I'm telling you that, then in your mind, you're like, oh, London is a horrible boyfriend. How could he have ever done that to my sister? And then the next time you see us and we're all like lovey-dovey and you're like, I thought he was such a jerk. It's just like, it's not healthy. And like your partner, your person you're dating is someone that you are supposed to love and honor and protect in so many ways. And when you're just like slandering them,
if there is issues to talk about, go talk to, you know,
a trusted person,
a pastor, a mentor. someone who's older,
Right.
probably, because it could just turn to gossip.
Yes, exactly.
Or it can just taint someone else's view if
Right.
they're immature.
And sometimes, like, I might just be having a hard day and London does nothing
Yes.
wrong, and I
Yes.
just, you know.
It's actually a you problem.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And so I think that that's another emotional boundary to have, of like the way you talk about your partner in a lot of different ways, of like you want to protect them and protect yourself from looking like a gossip and being
really
a gossip. And there are so many things about dating is hard. Like it's really hard because there's just so many things that you don't know, and every relationship is different. And so like both of our dating relationships were very different. Like there were a lot of similarities, but everything I experienced is not everything that you've experienced. So sometimes it can feel very isolating and feel like nobody gets me. But
right.
God sees it all.
God sees it all.
Knows. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the best dating relationships that work out are the ones that you just are friends first.
Mm-hmm.
As in, like, before you're attracted to each other, before all of that, like, you're just like, there's a friendship. Mm-hmm. There's a deep, like, connection, and it's a different friendship than any other friendship. Right. But I think in, like, just with any other friendship, it's going to take time to develop. Yeah. But usually at first you can, like even just like a best friend. Like, when you meet them, you just kind of know right away. You're like, oh, this is someone who, like, gets me and I get them. And I think the best dating relationships kind of have that similar start. Yes. It's a different approach to friendship because there are so many other elements to it. Like,
you're
attraction and connection and emotions and all of that and experiences. And you spend a lot of time together. But just sometimes in your relationship, you should just ask yourself, like, do I enjoy spending time with this person?
Right. Because if you don't, that's an issue.
Well, you can just get caught up in, like, oh, I'm dating them.
Right. I have a boyfriend.
I have a boyfriend. Yeah. And then you can just kind of realize, like, I don't even like this person.
Yeah. And that's okay.
And
you don't have to make every relationship work. That's also not healthy.
Yeah. Yeah. Do we want to answer a couple questions?
Yeah, let's do it.
So, okay, let me look through these.
My chair is so
How long?
squeaky.
We'll just do some quick answers.
Okay.
We don't need to spend a long time.
Okay.
How long should you wait to get over a relationship to start a new one?
I feel like that one depends on a lot of different factors. Like, why did the last relationship end? How long was the last relationship? Was it a healthy relationship? Are you in a healthy place now?
Yeah.
There's just a lot of different factors that go into that. I would say that there's not any certain amount of time that needs to be set between.
Right. I just think there's things you need to do, probably.
Yeah.
Like, you should talk to a mentor about like the relationship, see why it ended. If there's anything that you need to fix in yourself before, you don't want to enter a relationship damaged and like hurt and bitter
and still not over
it.
That person.
So I think longer is always better,
right,
than less time,
right.
But yeah, make sure that there's no bitterness in your heart, because you will carry that into your next relationship. Yeah. So just search your heart, ask the Lord to search your heart, and then ask for some like raw feedback from a trusted person to help you.
Yeah, that's good.
If you don't plan on getting married young, should you date in high school?
I feel like, does that mean like you don't want to get married, or you just
young,
like
you're like, I won't get married until I'm like 30, but I want to date now?
I feel like
do that?
You don't know when you're going to get married. So to say that like, oh, I won't get married till I'm 30, like, you just don't know. I feel like you can't put that cap on there. I don't know. I think that dating in high school is not always the best idea, just period. I think you're so underdeveloped in a lot of ways, in the nicest way possible. Like, I'm speaking to myself as a high schooler, when I was a high schooler. Like, there's just so many things that you don't know. Yeah. And I think that, I'm not saying it's bad to date in high school at all. I dated in high school, but I think that, like, in hindsight, I wish I didn't, because I wish that I would have just been a high schooler. And
yeah, I think that's kind of the heart of the question too. Is like this person asking, like, kind of knows that it's probably not going to work out in high school. Yeah. And I think
just save yourself, and I would just say don't.
Yeah, just don't. But you can still be friends with guys, and you can like guys, and you can learn how to like how to treat guys and how to like interact with them, but you don't need to worry about the like relational side of things, especially when you kind of feel like, yeah, I know this isn't going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
Save yourself the heartache.
Yeah. And save the other person the heartache.
Okay. How do you know when you're in love with someone and not the idea of being wanted / in love? How do you know you're actually in love with someone and not just in love with the idea of love?
Yeah.
Or being wanted. I
think that being in love is, a lot of people have a very Hollywood view of it. And like, you'll feel like the sparkles and bubbles and I don't know, all the things
amazing all the time.
Yeah, that's not what love is. The Bible talks a lot about love and actually describes what love is. And I think if you can view those descriptions of love, is that 1 Corinthians 13? Or is it second? Yeah, 1 Corinthians 13. I think if you can compare those attributes to your relationship and be like, yes, then you're probably in love. That's not always the case. But I also think like if you're like the question is, how do you know if you're in love or if you just
like the idea of someone liking you?
I think
okay, it's kind of mixed because it always is going to feel good to have someone liking you and loving you. And it should feel good. And so just because you feel that like, oh, like, because love is selfless, but you are selflessly loving someone and they are selflessly loving you. And that's why it works, is because both people win in it. And so I think you kind of know if you're just like, I think that if you take away all of the selfish things in the relationship, like if you're finding yourself saying a lot of I statements like, oh, I just like the way they make me feel, or I just like how they buy me gifts, or I just like
those are all very like superficial things.
Then I think you might not actually love them. But if you would go a long time without those things that they give you and you would still give to them, then I think that you do love them. And I think if you're willing to sacrifice for someone, then I think you do love them.
Yeah.
If you're patient with them, kind, you know, not self-serving, all of the things in 1 Corinthians 13. Like, just look at that list and ask, is that how I treat them?
Yeah.
Is that how I feel about them?
Right.
And if it is, then I would say, yeah. And it takes time to develop that.
Right. I think that question also, like, if you're worried about the way you feel about someone being like an infatuation or just like something you're desiring, to me, obviously I don't know the person that's asked this question, but like that sounds like there's something a little bit deeper in your heart going on that you might need to seek the Lord on that and ask him to reveal, like, what are the ways that I'm like, give me a godly perspective of what love is and like how I love and how I receive love. And because it's different for everyone, like, you know, your love languages are different. And so I think to just ask for the Lord to kind of open your eyes. Yeah. Some of those things is a healthy thing to do.
Yeah. It's really good.
Yeah.
All right. Any closing thoughts? Anything else you just have to say before we're done?
I don't think so.
Just good.
Dating can be fun.
Yeah. I think that's let's just like wrap it up in our main points, is that dating should be fun, right? Yeah. Don't take yourself too seriously in it. Yeah.
You shouldn't be feeling drained constantly in your dating relationship.
Yeah.
What did we even talk about?
I don't even know. Yeah, just have fun with dating. Stay in community.
Yeah, keep good boundaries.
Have mentors that you can talk to about your relationship, about how you're doing. Be praying for your future and that God would guide you in everything. And protect your heart. Partner. Have boundaries. Yeah.
All the things.
Awesome.
Well, next week we're going to talk about
engagement.
It's
true.
I love engagement.
Yeah, we didn't talk about breakups at all, I realized.
No.
Maybe next week.
Nobody likes breakup anyways,
no, but they're real. They're a part of our lives, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, next week we're covering engagement and how you can know when you're ready to step into engagement. And maybe that's when breakups will come up, because if you're not, then you probably should break up. Yeah, we're going to talk about that. It's going to be great. And stay tuned.
We hope to see you there.
Yes. So anyways, thanks for joining us. this week for our second episode on dating. I hope you liked it. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and we will see you next week for our engagement episode.
Yay.